The CU Cancer Center is the hub of leading-edge cancer research in the Rocky Mountain region, and our center is obviously a vital resource for patients and families as they face a cancer diagnosis and look for the best treatment options available anywhere. The CU Cancer Center brings together over 300 researchers from 2 universities and 4 clinical entities to drive discovery and innovation. Our members work in labs and hospitals on this campus, including our own research buildings, as well as University Hospital and Children's Hospital, Colorado, and at the Rocky Mountain Regional VA Medical Center just down the street. The institutions that we partner with include CU Boulder, the CSU Flint Animal Cancer Center, the Denver Health, and UC Health locations across the state. The success of our cancer center is a direct result of the dedicated people who come to work each day with a dedicated laser-like focus on preventing and curing cancer. We have the opportunity, you will have the opportunity to hear from some of those talented physicians and researchers tonight, and I hope you enjoy it through panel conversations and breakout rooms. While the leaders of the CU Cancer Center are critical to our ability to drive innovation in both the clinic and the lab, their progress simply would not be possible without each of you in our strong community of support. I would like to thank each of you for being here and especially to those who made this event possible. The event's chairs, Kathy Odell Courts, and of course, Gary Courts, and Lisa and Richard Cohn. Our event sponsors, Kathy Odell Courts and Gary Courts, Dependable Cleaners, Sarah and Eric Resnick, Firth and Colin Waldron, the Denver Bouldering Club, Ed and Jeannie Hazelton, the MDC Richmond America Foundation, and other generous supporters. Years before we broke ground on what is today this thriving medical campus at the former Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center, extraordinary financial philanthropic commitments were made, and the work of passionate individuals laid the groundwork for the CU Cancer Center. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to Richard Schulich, Dr. Richard Schulich, the director of the CU Cancer Center and chairman of the Department of Surgery, who will tell you more about the history of the Cancer Center and share a video highlighting some of our critical partnerships. Rich?
Thank you, Don. It's a real honor to serve as Cancer Center Director under you. When Dean Riley and Chancellor Elliman approached me about this role about 3 years ago, I was interested in the opportunity in part because of the tremendous foundation that was already in place. Our story of success would not be possible without community members who saw the vision and the need in our community. In a moment, we will honor the contributions of both the Robinson and Courts families. Their interest in bettering the lives of Coloradans began with an ambitious vision over a century ago to treat tuberculosis, which was a leading cause of death at the time. On land in Lakewood, Colorado, donated by the Robinson family, a City of Hope arose in the early 1900s. The facility provided housing and treatment for tuberculosis patients and even job training for those who recovered. It was called the Jewish Consumptive Relief Society, or JCRS. In the 1950s, with TB all but eradicated, JCRS and its supporters refocused on a new battle, finding a cure for cancer, about which very little was known at that time. In the 1950s, the AMC was formed. They changed their name from AMC to AMC Cancer Research Center. By 1971, the war on cancer started. President Richard Nixon declared this war on cancer with the National Cancer Act, and innovative research and treatment was already going on at the AMC. Indeed, a key focus there was research on how we might prevent cancer in the first place. It is my honor to recognize two remarkable individuals who have committed decades of their lives to increasing awareness about the CU Cancer Center. They have advocated tirelessly for community involvement and philanthropic support to advance progress towards new treatments and eventual cures. Thank you.
Because of you
Because of you, we are preventing
and conquering cancer
together.
I'm a survivor of colorectal cancer, so I truly see the good of what Anschutz Medical Campus and the CU Cancer Center does for people. It gives people a lot of hope.
My uncle is Don Kortz, and Don has been a philanthropic leader in Denver his entire life. He's served on more boards and committees and public service entities than you can count, one of them being the University of Colorado Cancer Center. Don had the benefit recently of treatment at the Cancer Center, and so it's been a blessing to us, to our family, for all of the treatment and care that he's received to overcome his central nervous system lymphoma.
I'm really proud to be a member of the University of Colorado Cancer Center. It's a place where basic science researchers and clinical researchers and community-based research and population-based researchers come together, formulate strategies, and work together as a team to solve problems with cancer.
My great-great-grandfather came here in 1885, and they started the dairy. They donated 100 acres from their dairy farm to JCRS in 1904. It was the Jewish Consumptive Relief Society, which treated tuberculosis in the 1900s. It then evolved into the American Medical Center, which became the AMC Cancer Research Center. My father recruited Don to the board of the AMC Cancer Research Center.
Don served as the chair of the board of AMC and is one of my inspirations to be involved in the Cancer Center. Don's efforts in helping in the transition of AMC into the Cancer Center was a critical step in the Cancer Center obtaining its NCI designation. NCI, or the National Cancer Institute, is a funding organization of the federal government that provides the core grant, which is critical to the operation of the Cancer Center.
Philanthropy really allows us to attract and retain the best talent in the country. It also allows us to pivot. So for existing researchers to go in a new direction, to see something that looks interesting and pursue that.
Ellen and the Robinson family effort over the years resulted in millions of dollars being given to the Cancer Center.
I've been very fortunate to have been taught to give back, and the University of Colorado Cancer Center is a great opportunity to do so.
Our laboratory is focused on natural products for prostate cancer, as well as more recently, the use of high-dose testosterone to treat advanced prostate cancer. So a very novel area. To get to that point of establishing a program that can be funded and can get a grant, we needed discretionary funds. So philanthropy really allowed us to move forward in this new direction.
It takes not only the people that work inside of the Cancer Center, the doctors, the researchers, and all that, but it takes people who are willing to give of their time and philanthropy to make it happen. And Don and Ellen have done that and inspired a lot of people also to do that.
The Kortz and the Robinson families have really been the drivers of the men's event.
I've been involved in planning the men's events for over 40 years, since the beginning almost.
That funding has been key in obtaining some samples from patients in a biorepository in which we can distribute amongst many researchers. Their interest and support of our research means a lot. People that are extremely busy, taking time to get together to support us, but also to encourage us. I'm very grateful for that.
We've done women in wine dinners. People really put their money where their passion and heart is.
I do believe that philanthropy will be a key way we move forward and find the eventual cure for cancer and many other diseases.
It's really an honor to be associated with the Cancer Center. The leadership, the researchers, the doctors that provide the ability for people in Colorado and neighboring states to receive world-class care is a wonderful thing. And you don't know it until you need it. But when you need it and that facility is there and available to you, it means everything for you, for your treatment, for your recovery, and for your family.
we're oftentimes encouraged to have a more novel idea. Sometimes they say the crazier idea, the bigger the potential reward. For us to continue to pursue that, we need friends, we need benefactors that are with us for the long haul. The Courts and the Robinson families really epitomize that in a way that's very special to the CU community. Ellen and Don, I want to personally thank you for all the things you've done for CU and for our programs over the years.
For everything that you've done, thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Don.
We appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much. Again, my name is Scott Arthur. I'm the Vice Chancellor for Advancement. And I get the opportunity to meet with benefactors and talk with them about how they want to support the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. I want to recognize Ellen Robinson and Don Courts. Again, thank you so much for your dedication and for all of your support. Philanthropy is really, I would say, an accelerant. We are going to win this battle over cancer. It's just a matter of when. And the more we raise, the shorter that timeline is. And that really is what drives our team and really drives our researchers. I've got two special people today that I'd like to introduce. Dr. Schulich, you met already, but I'm going to give a little bit of a background, and then our Dean of the School of Medicine, John Riley. Dr. Schulich joined the CU Anschutz Medical Campus in 2012 and was appointed director of the CU Cancer Center in 2018. Under Schulich's leadership, the Department of Surgery has doubled in size, recruiting top talent from across the country and building a strong program that includes more than 180 faculty. People sometimes call you the Hopkins of the West, the amount of people you've gotten from them. A renowned cancer surgeon and accomplished administrative leader, he was chosen to serve as the director of the Cancer Center to implement a plan to extend the reach of the center, further integrate our research and clinical programs, and improve the quality of life for the patients that we serve. He has also grown the Cancer Center leadership, including adding associate directors of community outreach and engagements, informatics, and data science. We'll be talking a little bit about that, and population health. Dean John Riley joined the University of Colorado in 2015 as the Dean of the University of Colorado School of Medicine and Vice Chancellor for Health Affairs. He joined us from the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine, and his personal research activities are focused on various pulmonary diseases. Since joining the University of Colorado, he has recruited hundreds of faculty members and growing our talent. I think he's recruited 700 some faculty already. It seemed bigger, more than some small schools. While we have questions prepared, we would like you to add your questions to the panels. But I'll get us started. Dean Riley, when Don Elliman recruited you, he asked you a specific question. He was like, are we going to try to be good at everything, or are we going to have a power of focus? And one of my mentors told me, your focus and your priorities are measured by your checkbook and your calendar, what you spend your time on and your money. And 3 years ago, the university, along with our hospital partners, invested over $100 million to recruit and to keep Dr. Schulich here. Why?
Well, for those of you who visit the Anschutz Medical Campus, you know we have a spectacular facility here. But the thing that defines this place is the talent that occupies those facilities. And the goal in recruiting Rich to assume the additional role of being the director of the Cancer Center was to further the translation of all the research that goes onto this campus into improved care for patients with cancer. And it was my judgment, I think shared by the chancellor who you met earlier, that was best accomplished by a physician scientist who not only was on the leading edge of cancer research, but also provided care for patients with cancer. And as you alluded to in your introduction, Dr. Schulich joined us from Johns Hopkins. He's a highly accomplished pancreatic surgeon who treats a lot of patients with pancreatic cancer with outstanding results. And so in our minds, he was the ideal leader to speak with credibility, both to the research community and to the clinicians who take care of people with cancer.
Dr. Schulich, I want to talk about the context of cancer, but before we do this, you're in medical school, figure out what you want to do. Why this?
Well, when I was actually a freshman, in college. My parents were in the State Department. I received a phone call that my father had developed metastatic colorectal cancer, and he was being evacuated back to the United States. And he fought hard against the colorectal cancer, but eventually succumbed to it. And that experience really solidified the idea of going into medicine, and specifically going into medicine to play a role in the war against cancer. I had another experience about 2 decades later when my mom developed breast cancer. Her cancer was caught early. She was treated, survived, and lived for several decades after that, and the cancer never recurred. So I saw kind of both ends of the spectrum, and that experience has really initiated my interest in cancer, but then during my training solidified my will to enter the battle against cancer.
So let's talk about that battle. How are we doing?
Well, we've made actually great improvements over the last 2 or so decades. As a matter of fact, the cancer death rates have fallen by over about 25% in the last 2 decades or so. So we are doing better, but nowhere near where we need to be. And I just refreshed my knowledge on the statistics for 2021. And 1.9 million Americans are expected to be diagnosed with a new cancer in 2021. And about 600,000 Americans will die from cancer. And to put this in a personal perspective, I don't think I've ever run across anyone when I ask the question, have you had a family member or a friend who's developed cancer? I don't think I've ever come across anyone who can say no to all 3 questions. So it's a big deal. Another way to look at it is, what's my lifetime risk? My lifetime risk of developing cancer, and it's 1 in 2 almost. And what's my risk of dying from cancer? Me, Richard Schulich, it's about 1 in 4, or about 25%. Those are bad numbers, and we need to do something.
Well, I think the campus is doing a few things. Dean Riley, I think one of the things that drew you in academic medicine is this idea of translational research and having an idea and being able to see it come from an idea to actually impacting patients. Perhaps you could give us some examples of that here on campus that we've been doing.
Sure. As Rich has pointed out, there has been tremendous progress in cancer over the course of my career. I graduated from medical school almost exactly 40 years ago this week. I vividly remember the first patient I took care of as a third-year student in medical school was a gentleman with acute promyelocytic leukemia who got treated with highly toxic chemotherapy and lived less than 2 years. And today that disease is totally curable with non-toxic therapy. More recently on this campus, you may have heard a lot about immunotherapy. We have one open clinical trial in both adults and children, and another one about to open using re-engineered immune cells taken from patients and then engineered in the laboratory and then grown in the Gates Biomanufacturing Facility on this campus to treat patients with B-cell lymphomas and leukemias. And these are patients for whom conventional therapy has failed and are otherwise looking at a horrible prognosis. And the early results of these trials are very promising, but they are early. But it's the kind of thing that can only be done on a campus like this. Another example would be out of the research laboratories. Dr. Craig Jordan on this campus has defined a specific pathway in certain leukemias that mean they metabolize sugars differently than normal cells. That in turn has provided a target for therapy. And so under the leadership of Dan Pollier in the same division, it's transformed the treatment of adults with chronic leukemias. And it went from being one of the most depressing clinics on our campus to a clinic where people show each other pictures of their grandkids now and what they're planning for summer vacation.
Amazing. So, Dr. Schulich, you hear about all these treatments, and I hear a lot from benefactors, and I've seen a few on the screen that have asked this question: is you have all these great ideas and you have all these great treatments, do you just keep it to yourself? And so, Dr. Schulich, I'd like to have you explain to people, when you have these ideas, explain what the National Cancer Institute is, the NCI Comprehensive Cancer Center, and why is that important when you think about treatments like this?
So at a very high level, the reason the NCI established these cancer centers was to accelerate the process of making scientific discoveries, doing experiments in mice or other animals, proving a concept, bringing the ones that worked really well to human clinical trials. And then if that is successful, then getting enough information so the FDA can approve a new therapy, and of course, getting that out to the rest of the world. And that process has played over and over and over at the University of Colorado Cancer Center, as well as the 70 or so other cancer centers around the country. And I think a large part of the progress we've made in the fight against cancer is because of these NCI designated cancer centers. And I'll add to that, in addition to these scientific discoveries and new therapies and FDA approval, we also deliver the very best care to cancer patients and their families. Patients who come to an NCI designated cancer center have access to top-notch clinicians. They have access to clinical trials, sometimes years before they're FDA approved and available for the general public. And we have multiple examples of this that have played out over the last 10 or 15 or so years.
So tell me about, so you've really been focused on this whole idea of prevention. I think everyone understands catching something early is important, but then Chancellor Elliman talks about a lot is we want to make sure that we give the best healthcare in the world, that nobody has to leave this region to get the best healthcare in the world. I'm going to go off script a little bit. Could you tell me about your perspective of a multi-D clinic? Why you think that is cutting edge compared to where a lot of places are, and why you brought that perspective here?
Yes. So when I came, I actually developed the multidisciplinary pancreas cancer clinic at Johns Hopkins. And when I came here, one of my requirements for coming was that I would be able to develop a pancreatic cancer clinic, and then a sarcoma clinic, and then a urology clinic, a head and neck clinic, a lung cancer clinic, a gastric cancer clinic, esophageal cancer, on down the line. And what these multidisciplinary clinics do is they concentrate the experts on that cancer, whatever that cancer is. Let's take pancreatic cancer, for example. So at a pancreas multidisciplinary clinic, we have surgeons who are expert at resecting pancreas cancer. We have medical oncologists who are expert at giving chemotherapy. We have radiation oncologists. We have expert pathologists. We have interventional radiologists, gastroenterologists, and on down the line. So it's very common to have 20 or 30 people on that conference, right? And we discuss patients one at a time, and we go through all the different angles, all the perspectives, and we come up with a consensus plan for that patient. And then after we break up from that conference, we go and meet with the patient and their family. And sometimes it'll be the surgeon, the medical oncologist, the radiation oncologist that go to the patient and their family and say, hey, this is what we discussed. Here are the options. This is what our group thought would be the best. And here's the plan. And this is compared to the way most cancer patients are taken care of around the country, even today, unfortunately, where somebody suspects a pancreas cancer, they send you to the surgeon says, yeah, I suspect pancreas cancer. we should get a biopsy of that thing. So a week later, you go to the gastroenterologist, you get a biopsy. Oh yeah, it's positive. You know what? But maybe you're going to need some chemotherapy. So they send you to the medical oncologist a week later. The medical oncologist agrees, yep, we need chemotherapy, but you know what? Maybe radiation is also an option.
This is my stepmom.
So
This
yeah,
is my stepmom.
so a week later, you see the radiation oncologist, and then, none of these doctors talk to each other nor debate, what the best course
Well,
of
they
action.
saw that person 6 weeks ago and they can't remember.
They can't remember. Yeah. But here we do it in one day. And
Wow.
all the information's fresh. All points of views are discussed. Sometimes we actually argue in this conference, but by the end of the conference, we come down with a consensus plan, and that's what we go to the patient and family with. Patients and their families love it.
So it's a patient-centered approach
It's a
instead of
patient-
a physician.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Dean, one of the passions that you have is the role of basic science. I have two questions for you. What is the role of science as it relates to this battle on cancer? Excuse me. And then where the puck is going, you're really voting on this whole idea of bioinformatics. So if you could talk about how those two things interplay, that would be helpful.
Sure. Well, I think the role of science in advancing our ability to effectively treat cancer is it's hard to overstate it. If you look at the advances over the last 40 years, and I was privileged when I was in training to work with Emil Frey, one of the founders of the effective therapy for childhood leukemias. It's an understanding of how cancer is the same and is different than normal biology that has improved our ability to, number one, find effective treatments, and number two, find less toxic treatments, more targeted therapy. There was a black humor when I was in medical school that you could kill cancer with a Mack truck. The trick was keeping the patient alive. And anybody who's been through intensive chemotherapy knows that there's significant side effects. So the goal here is to come up with a therapy that's precisely targeted at the cancer and has as few as possible side effects on healthy cells. And some of those insights come from clinical trials. A lot come from working in the laboratory with models of disease in tissue culture, in isolated cells, in animal models of disease, which is why our partnership with our colleagues at CSU and the Flint Animal Cancer Center is so important. And then moving that into the clinical arena, as Rich mentions, and the NCI comprehensive cancer centers have provided a network and a framework for that movement into clinical trials.
I've also heard you say that you even shift the way you talk about cancer, where it's not about where it is in the organ, but more the type of cancer on the genomic level is fascinating to me.
Exactly. So there are cancers that arise in different organs, but they arise because they have similar mutations and alterations in the regulation of their growth. So you can target them with the same therapies, even though they arise in different organs. Now, we've been doing this for 40, 50 years now. We have a lot of data, a lot of data. And with the advent of sequencing and proteomics and epigenomics, all the quote omics, the rate of data increase is exponential. And so a new frontier now in science is reliable ways to take advantage of all that data and generate insights and hypotheses from that data to move the field forward. With the advent of high throughput computer performance, and everybody now has in their phone more an unimaginable amount of computing power compared to what they had 30 years ago. We need techniques that keep up with being able to analyze that data, and that's where informatics comes in. So for instance, on our campus, Dr. Clay Smith is involved in a project that looks at, of all the available therapies for adults with leukemia, and there are probably at least 80 agents out there now for that. What characteristics of patients predict which therapies are going to work best or not work for them? And using advanced informatics science have developed algorithms to say, okay, yes, we have 80 options for you, but we think this one is the best, or you need to stay away from this one because we're highly confident it won't work for you. So that's been a real thrust over the past 18 months on this campus to expand our informatics capabilities.
It's almost like changing from a treatment plan to your treatment plan.
Correct.
Let's talk about diversity. Dr. Schulich, talk about why you think diversity of members and leaders is so important to the Cancer Center.
So I think diversity is extremely important in all forms. And what we strive to do at the University of Colorado Cancer Center is to have leadership and membership of the Cancer Center that reflects the population of patients we treat. And, you know, all the big corporations, I think all the successful organizations pay a lot of attention to diversity, because when you make major decisions with diverse inputs, and you take care of the people you're supposed to be taking care of, you make better decisions. And the University of Colorado Cancer Center has really focused on this over the past several years. And you'll see this reflected in our leadership, where we actually have a leadership that sort of looks like the population of patients that we're taking care of. And this is an extremely important issue.
Sorry, I got tick on my throat. Talk about treatment of cancer. It's one thing to go to an area far away from your home, but when dealing with cancer, why is being so close to home so important in terms of outcomes?
Yeah. So, you know, I just reviewed these data this morning. And if you look at the results of our treatment of all the major cancers, in a lot of the cancers, we perform so much better than the state average in Colorado. And in many of the cancers, we perform better than the average in the United States. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is that if you're diagnosed with a cancer, you or your family member, and you need it taken care of, that's a full-time job for maybe 6 months or a year. And it involves multiple trips back and forth to your caregivers. And, you know, the last thing I would want, if it were me or my family member, is to get on a plane 20 or 30 times in a year to live or stay in a, you know, a foreign city to me, not my hometown, not be around my friends and family, and to get treatment, some of which can take its toll on you. So what the best thing to do is to bring world-class cancer care here to Colorado and make sure that no one ever has to leave Colorado for cancer care. And that's what we have striven to do. And that's what we've done. And that's what we will continue to do.
So, Dean, I work with a lot of benefactors, and this happens a lot. They love their physician, and they feel bad about requesting a second opinion. So can you talk about the role of an academic medical center and why that is very appropriate, and you should not feel nervous about asking for a second opinion?
Yeah. Well, I've had this conversation a number of times with patients in my own practice, and I tell them, if you have a doctor that's upset that you're getting a second opinion, you need a second opinion. People who are really good are secure in their competence and are always interested to hear what other practicing physicians say. An example of that would be the multidisciplinary conference that Rich mentioned, in which you have multiple people in the room. And I can tell you, those conversations don't always start out with unanimous agreement on the best course. And this gets back to the diversity question you asked Rich earlier. The data are really clear that diverse teams getting multiple points of view result in better decisions and higher performance than people who all think the same way. So if your doctor's upset that you're getting a second opinion, as I said, you should get a second opinion. People who are good, that doesn't bother them.
All right. Do we have any questions from the audience? Okay. If you don't have any questions, please add your questions to your chat. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Actually, I think we're actually going to be moving to breakout groups right now. So what we're going to do is you're going to meet some of this talent, and we're going to be in breakout groups. A theme that you've heard this evening from our chancellor, everyone here, is that we are successful because of the talent. And you're really going to be able to spend some quality time with some of our best and brightest talents in your breakout rooms. You're going to be receiving a message very shortly. They'll tell you which breakout room you're going to go to. We have a moderator in each room. And after that, we're going to come back for our closing, but please stay with us and enjoy your breakout room. Thanks so much.
Before I get into the next session, Susan actually had a question on chat, which we picked up. And her question was, is there a way to detect cancer early through a blood test? And the answer to that is that, yes, the technology is being developed right now. It's not quite ready for prime time. And that is such an important question because I like to talk about kind of the 4 things we have to do to take better care of cancer patients. Number 1 is we need to prevent cancer, right? So if you prevent cancer, you don't have to detect it early and you don't have to treat it. That's the best. If you can't prevent cancer, then you need to detect it early at an early stage. Because everyone knows if you catch cancer at an early stage, you can cure it. If you can't prevent it and you can't detect it early, then the next best thing is to have great therapies, whether it's surgery, chemotherapy, radiation therapy, immunotherapy. And the 4th level is if you have all these great therapies, you should have multidisciplinary care where you can actually attach the right treatments to the right situation in the cancer patient. But diving in a little more detail about the blood tests go more with strategy number 2, detecting cancers early. So there are multiple groups around the country, around the world, including us, that are trying to detect circulating cancer cells, circulating tumor cells, or detect the DNA or RNA from cancers that may be growing in the body. And if we are able to get to a test that's very sensitive and can specifically point out an early cancer, we will definitely use it and use it in our multidisciplinary setting. So that was a great question. So let me get to the next section of this evening. So at the beginning of this event, Chancellor Elliman shared that we have approximately 300 members of the University of Colorado Cancer Center. Combined, your breakout rooms just now featured 30 of these individuals. Their names and titles are now scrolling on your screen. I'd like you to imagine the expertise and passion that we have as a cancer center based on the incredible individuals who have dedicated their lives and careers to preventing and conquering cancer together. I'd also like to take a moment to extend a huge thank you to our colleagues in the Office of Advancement. Scott Arthur, who facilitated our panel conversation, leads a team of professionals, many of whom have made this event possible, both on screen and behind the scenes, and they have done a terrific job. So what I'd like to do now is invite all of you to share a word or a phrase in the chat function that describes how you are feeling tonight based on what you've heard and the conversations from the breakout rooms. So why don't we pause for a minute or so and start collecting these words or phrases, and I can read them out to you as we get them. Okay, here comes one. Hopeful. Encouraged. Inspired. Grateful. Motivated. So I operate 2 days a week. I operate on Mondays and Wednesdays. I have clinics Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. And these words really summarize the feelings that I get from my cancer patients and their families as we're going through this process of discovering exactly what the issue is, coming up with a plan, and describing to them what the sequence of events is. I think many of us, including myself, are very uncomfortable and we're scared if we're not sure what the plan is or what the solution to the problem is. But once you have the plan and the solution, I think all of these words that I just read out come into play. So they're very important and very powerful words. Okay. So next, what I want to do is share the new advertising campaign that just launched on June 7th, promoting the partnership between UC Health and the CU Cancer Center. We understand that the CU Cancer Center has been the best kept secret for way too long, and we are actively working to change that. As Cancer Center Director, it was incredibly important to me that we focus on people. Because of the excellence of our cancer center and our people, we have better outcomes in most cancers than our peers in Colorado. And depending on the type of cancer, some of these outcomes are 2, 3, and even 4 times better. In addition, our outcomes in Colorado compare favorably to national outcomes and to all the top cancer centers. This means that staying in Colorado for cancer care is advantageous to nearly all of our patients. I am so proud of this campaign, which is currently visible in the Metro Denver area and will remain in market throughout the summer and into the fall. We are also planning to have additional waves in market over the next few years. Let's take a look at this TV spot.
In the past 5 years, over 12,000 Coloradans have made a comeback from breast cancer, more than 2,000 from blood cancer, over 12,000 from prostate and colorectal cancer, and over 26,000 more comebacks from other cancers. So the question isn't, will there be comebacks? The question is, how many? Visit uchealth.org/comebacks to see survival rates higher than the state average.
Wow, that's a great spot, Dr. Schulich. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We just got word that we have a donor that's willing to give up to $25,000 for a match, for a total of $50,000 for this evening. One of you might wonder, what will $50,000 do? Dean Riley talked about Dr. Jordan, Dr. Smith. We talked about the talent that we're recruiting. There's a young researcher doing something remarkable. They just need someone to bet on them. Help us find the next Dr. Jordan, the next Dr. Schulich, these young researchers, and these funds will create seed grants that Dr. Schuler can say, you know what, the best idea wins. That's what that can do. The biggest thing too that you gave us is your time. That is something that we really appreciate. So thank you so much. And with that, Chancellor Elliman.
First of all, thank Rich and John for sharing your insights with us. I think it was a remarkable evening. And I also want to join Rich in thanking all of the faculty advisors who worked on today. They're really the people who are doing this work. I mean, they're the ones that are making this happen every single day and making the results that Scott and Rich spoke about, the reality for patients in Colorado today and tomorrow. And I think the tomorrow part is really pretty important. We also want to thank our sponsors for their support. Once again, Ellen Robinson and Don Courts and their families. They're wonderful friends of the Cancer Center and of this campus, and we're very, very grateful for their support. We did have more questions today than we could answer, and we will have follow-up communication with that. But I think most importantly, we hope that for all of you, this is not the end, but the beginning or an early stage in your dialogue with the CU Cancer Center. We thank you again for your support. Be safe, be well, and take care.